from Wesleyan University in Macon, Georgia, and a Master's of Philosophy in Spanish Foreign Language Education from the University of the West Indies. She's a member of the Translators and Interpreters Association and the Association of Graduate Researchers in Education. She has published enough articles and bare things, guys, and she's a member of the Circle K International Club, and she's very active in her church and in several ministries, and her passion, which you will see today, really demonstrates her love for God as well as teaching. So, guys, just please welcome Miss Williams, and now there will be no more English. Nah.
I really don't want to have to use a mic. Can you guys hear me? Oh, yes, we're streaming. I forgot we're streaming, the streamers. Good morning. Buenos días a todos. ¿Y cómo están? Tengo hambre. Sí, sí. Entiendo perfectamente. I understand perfectly, right? All right, so what are we going to do today? We all know that oral exam is usually the first exam, right? First exam. We can go to the next slide, please. And so, ¿qué vamos a hacer hoy? So, I know my intro sound fancy and all of these things, but you see me make sure I dress down. Make sure I look like Unu, right? Because I don't want nobody to feel out of place. So I make sure I tell Mr. Alexis, you know, that I come in my cut-up jeans and my Converse today, because it's a high school setting, right? Cool. So the introduction was already done, and so these are what we're going to cover, some things that you guys are quite aware of what the structure of the exam will be, and so we'll be looking at that. Next slide for me, please. And I want this to be interactive, you know. I'm not going up here and talk for 2 hours, right? When you come to my classes, even in college, it's interactive. Spanish is a fun subject. Spanish is very important, and I'm really excited to see that there are students who are still excited about languages. Because most of our neighbors, practically all of them, speak which language? Español, right? Muy bien. All right, so we know that the structure of the exam is before we get to that, if we don't understand or question words, we're in big trouble for oral exam, right? Because you need to, if you want, you will get the slides, guys. They will email it out to you guys, okay? So if you don't know what the questions are asking, then you can't answer the questions. So the first thing is to know what our interrogativos are, the question words, right? So the who is usually straightforward. There's only one word for who, quién, right? And then we have some other things, to whom, from whom, and with whom. Con quién, right? Con quién desayunas esta mañana? With whom did you have breakfast this morning, right? Do you have breakfast? The qué, the what is usually the problem because so many of the words mean what? And they have other meanings, right? So qué, cuál, and cómo. When do we use qué? Well, you don't ever use qué with S. We never say que es. So when we're asking what is, it's always cuál es. What on the, when the show need the session done? Miss McDavid session done. They don't need it, right? So we normally when we're asking what is, it's going to be cuál es, right? And then you have on occasion you say como, right? For example, como te llamas? What is again? But the thing is, not all the times in Spanish you're going to transliterate, right? It's not going to be a literal translation. Because when you say something like, ¿Cómo te llamas?, what you're really asking is, how do you call yourself? But what you call yourself is your name, right? Good. When, always cuando. No synonyms. Same thing for which is always cuál. It's just that sometimes cuál is what. Right? And even in English, we tend to mix those up sometimes, you know. We mix up our what and our which, right? Then you have where, donde, where to, a donde, where from, de donde. Another two things with donde that usually get us confused. Donde está y de donde eres? Right? ¿Dónde estás? Where are you? We're asking about your location. ¿De dónde eres? From where are you? And we know that we must always know the difference between ser and estar, right? So if I'm asking you, ¿Cómo estás? What am I asking? How are you? As in, how are you feeling? How are you doing? You know, what is your emotional state? But if I ask you, ¿Cómo es? What am I asking? No, same how are you, but you're asking for a description. ¿Cómo es tu escuela? Right? ¿Cómo es tu escuela? How is your school? Right? ¿Cómo es tu familia? Right? So we can say, ¿cuántas personas hay en tu familia? We can say that. But then that's just one thing that we're asking about your family. But if we should say, ¿Cómo es tu familia? I'm asking you for a description of your family. So now you need to tell me if the family is big or small, how many persons are in the family. Because we know that we have one descriptive, you get at least 2 descriptive questions on the oral exam, right? So once you hear describe and explica, the one-word answer not cut it. All right? You need something more. All right? Good. How, we said como, we know that. Cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, cuántas, how much, how many. Next slide, please. So when we're going to travel, right? And I left out some of the things on purpose because I want us to talk about it, right? So when we're traveling, the word viajar is to travel. We know that. And then one of the infamous questions that they will ask has to do with lugares interesantes, right? So, ¿cuáles son algunos lugares interesantes en tu país? What are some of the interesting places in your country? That is one of those questions that normally come with the travel. Also, they might ask you to tell them about unas vacaciones inolvidables, right? You have to tell me about an unforgettable vacation. And guys, we're not going to call your parents and check if you really went to Spain and if you did go with who you said you went with. What we're looking for is not truth, we're looking for facts. So your answers must match the question because that's what we're assessing. So maybe you don't remember how to say Spain and really Spain you to go, but Cuba is way easier to say than España, right? So you say Cuba. Right? A Cuba, there you go. It didn't matter. It answers the question, right? So I always tell my students when they're practicing for oral exams, you don't have to answer the question factually. Even the situation responses. None of the questions have to be factual because we're not calling anybody to fact check. You're not running a political campaign. We just want to know, did you understand the question? And can you give me a response that is going to make sense given the question that you were asked, right? So some of the things we need to know are modes of transportation. Can anybody tell me modos de transporte? Autobús, coche, avión. I didn't hear you over here. Taxi, what else? Tren, right? So, motocicleta, sí, muy bien. So at times we might ask you, how do you go to school, right? ¿Cómo llegas a la escuela? It's not a travel question, but some of the topics some of the vocabulary will interlap, right? ¿Cómo llegas a la escuela? How do you get to school? Por tren, right? Por autobús, right? Travel documents. What are your travel documents that you would need to know about? How do you say passport? Pasaporte. Good. And how do you say visa? Visa. Right? These ones are so easy, right? We notice that with vacation language, it tends to sound almost English because you have lots of people coming and, the vocabulary, the words sound closer. Names of interesting places in your country. ¿Cómo se dice beach en español? Playa. How do you say museum? Museo. How do you say hotel? Hotel, right? Remember in Spanish, H at the beginning of a word, we pretend it's not there. We act real Jamaican. Hotel, right? Hotel. No, not hotel. Hotel, right? Good. So problems that can occur while traveling, right? So you more find those questions, not so much in the conversation, but more in your situations, where they might say you were late for school this morning because of an accident. What does the principal ask you? What do you say to the principal, right? So you need to know to say things like accidente, right, for accident. Everybody good so far? All right, next slide, right. Daily routine. What are some of the things that we do every day as we're getting up and getting ready for school and so on? So we're bathing, we are brushing our teeth, we are washing our face, right? Maybe you do a little chores, right, on the weekend and so on. So these are the activities that you need to know how to say in Spanish, right? So some other vocabulary items. Almuerzo preparado, prepared lunch, right? So they might ask you, usualmente, ¿traes un almuerzo preparado o no, right? So do you normally carry a prepared lunch or not, right? So you can say, no, compro mi almuerzo a la escuela, and so on. Hacer, to do or make. Hacer is an irregular verb, correct? What's the first person in present tense? Hago. Good. Hago. It's what we call one of those go verbs, right? Yo hago, not ako. And it's weird because normally with go verbs, we just drop the ending and add go, right? So we would have taken off the er, but we can't say akgo, right? So hacer is a little strange in that you have to also take off the c. Right? Other go verbs we know are like salir, yo salgo, right? Venir, yo vengo, tener, tengo, right? And then you find that verbs like venir and tener also have other irregularities which are stem changing, right? So you have tengo, but then it becomes tienes, right? Tiene, and then we remember that stem change doesn't affect the nosotros and vosotros form, so then it becomes tenemos, tenéis, and then we go back to the stem change, tienen. Llegar tarde, like some of us this morning, right? We came late. And then we have some who llegar a tiempo. And then we have some who llegar temprano, to arrive early, right? So again, if you arrive late, how do you say that? And how do you give a reason as to why you arrived late? Oficios domésticos or quehaceres, right? These are your chores. So sometimes they will ask, ¿qué oficios domésticos hacen en casa? Right? Which chores do you do at home? All if you don't do none. Yo barro, right? I sweep. Lavo los platos. Everybody remember that one. If you don't remember nothing else, I know everybody going to remember lavo los platos. I wash the plates. Right? Good. As yo hago mi cama, I make my bed. Right? Again, when we say spread bed, it's a Caribbean thing. All right, so if you look in the dictionary for spread bed, you're going to get the verb spread like to spread butter on the bread. All right, so when you say that now, we're going to know that, boy, somebody that used School of Google, all right? And we're using School of Google correctly. Gustar, in English we say to like, Spanish really translated as to be pleasing to. And so that's why sometimes we get into a little trouble with gustar, because we're not saying gusto, gustas, and so on. We're just saying gusta and gustan. Right? So if I like one thing, gusta. If I like several things, gustan. Right? And if I like several activities, still gusta. Right? So sometimes in your daily routine, they might ask you, ¿qué te gusta hacer? What do you like to do? Again, guys, if you like to go skiing and you cannot remember skiing, please go dancing. Me gusta bailar. Everybody knows bailar. Everybody knows cantar. Everybody knows cocinar. We even know leer, even when we don't like to read. So those are what we like to do for all intents and purposes as it relates to the exam question, right? Because we want to get good grades, you know. So yes, the more things you say, the better. But sometimes simplicity is even much better because we don't want to lose marks unnecessarily. Make sense? Good. Preferir. ¿Qué prefieres hacer? Right? What do you prefer to do? Right? So maybe I say, ¿qué te gusta hacer? And you say, pues me gusta bailar y cantar. Pues, ¿cuál prefieres? Which one do you prefer? Right? Acostarse, so some of your daily routine things. Acostarse, to go to bed, right? Despertarse would be to wake up. Levantarse, to get up. Now, again, in our culture, yeah, man, may I get up here now, meaning I'm waking up and I'm getting up. No, we have two verbs in Spanish. All right? Same thing. May I go on my bed? Yeah. May I go to bed? No, we have a separate verb for to go to bed, you go in the bed, and a separate word for to go to sleep. All right? So if they ask you on the exam, ¿a qué hora te acuestas? You cannot say, me duermo a. Two different things, right? Same thing. ¿A qué hora te despiertas? You cannot say me levanto, right? And if you're in doubt, just give the time. Make sense? Because you give the time, you might get not as many marks, but you don't lose marks for making a mistake and not showing that you didn't realize which verb it was. Make sense? Good. Days of the week, because sometimes they will ask you about what you do on the days of the week, so you know that Monday is, Tuesday is, Wednesday, Thursday, Jueves, Friday, Viernes, Saturday. Boy, on a bright bad. Thanks for not saying sábado, right? It's sábado, right? Because of where the accent is. Sunday is domingo. Muy bien. So, ¿qué haces los martes después de la escuela? What do you do on Tuesday after school, right? So listen out for things like that. So you have to listen for the key statements in the question, right? Adverbs of frequency. ¿Con qué frecuencia? How often, right? ¿Con qué frecuencia visitas tu padre en el campo? O no tu padre, lo siento, los abuelos. ¿Con qué frecuencia visitas tus abuelos? Right? How often do you visit your grandparents, right? Casi nunca, almost never, right? Siempre visito mis abuelos los fines de semana. I always visit my grandparents on weekend. So you have to know how to answer how often with your daily routine, right? And then remember when we're conjugating reflexive verbs, what's the big thing about, what is a reflexive verb? Anybody knows? You have to talk up loud, you know, even if it's loud and strong, wrong and strong. They end with SE, good. And the thing with reflexive verbs is that they are, the object and the subject of the verb are the same. So I wake myself up. So in English, if I say to you, I am going to bathe, the understanding is what? I am going to bathe who? Myself. So the reflexive is implied in English. And so that's what sometimes trips us up in Spanish, because we have to make it explicit. We have to state it, right? We have to put back the me there, or else the verb in Spanish is looking for its object, right? And so when you're conjugating, when they ask you, ¿a qué hora te acuestas? Don't just say acuesto. Because who do you put to bed when you acuesto, right? You have to say me acuesto. So remember that. Next slide, please. Sports and recreation, right? Instalaciones deportivas. So sports facilities at your school. What kind of sports facilities you have? Maybe you have una piscina, you have a pool for those who are doing swimming. Maybe you have some canchas de tenis, you have some tennis courts, right? Some campos de football, you have some football field, or maybe you don't have not one. Not one. Not one, right? Oh gosh. When you don't have no sporting stuff, not a thing. Marymount, not a court, not one court. Yes. Oh, netball. The netball. Okay, the netball. The netball. Wonderful. Boy, I guess I just show up my high school big time. Immaculate had swimming pool, tennis courts, football field, the whole 9 yards up there. Right? That was many moons ago. I don't think any of you in here were born when I was going to high school. Divertirse, to have fun, right? And what, I don't know what you guys do for fun these days, but again, try to just think of something simple that can answer. Remember, you know, we're going to get the grade. Yes, we want it to be fluent in Spanish, but when it comes to the test, we want you to pass the test. Make sense? We We want you to pass the test. Good. So, charlar por internet, right? And pasatiempos, hobbies. ¿Cuáles son tus pasatiempos? You cannot tell me, mi pasatiempo es bailar. I ask you for pasatiempos. Plural, right? So just think of two activities. Again, even if you don't like play football, but you remember how to say jugar al fútbol, just say jugar al fútbol, right? Gastar, to spend. Sometimes they ask you, ¿cuál actividad? ¿En cuál actividad gastas dinero, right? On which activity do you spend money or the most money? Sometimes they ask that question. So dinero is money, generally speaking. But if you wanted to say cash and coin, that's not dinero. There are other words for that. Fiesta de cumpleaños, birthday party. ¿Cómo celebras tu cumpleaños? How do you celebrate your birthday, right? Or en el año pasado, right? ¿Cómo era tu fiesta de cumpleaños? How was your birthday party last year, right? So now we know that we're drawing for preterite and imperfect, right? If it's a description in the past, is it going to be preterite or imperfect? Imperfect. Era. La fiesta era, right? Completed actions in the past. Yesterday I did this, and then I did that, and then I did that other thing, preterite, right? So the action is completed. So think about it this way. If you can say, I sat and I went and I shopped and I bought, those things, preterite. I used to do this. I used to do that. She was tall. The car was red. Imperfect, right? Hacer ejercicios, to exercise. They might ask you about los beneficios de hacer ejercicios. ¿Cuáles son algunos beneficios de hacer ejercicios? So what are some of the benefits of doing exercise, right? So mantenerse en buena salud, to maintain good health, and so on. Again, adverbs of frequency. ¿Con qué frecuencia haces ejercicios? How often do you exercise, right? Common activities and hobbies, such as the sports and so on that you can do. So, jugar al fútbol, right? Escuchar música, leer libros, bailar, and so on. Recreational places, gimnasio for the gym, right? Playa for beach, we said that already. And sometimes they ask you about your grupo musical, right? Which one is your favorite and why? Once we're going to ask you which something is your favorite, just always have a why. You understand? And even sometimes when they don't ask you the why, just eliminate the next question by giving them the why. Right? If you give them the why, they'll say, all right, no need to ask no more question in this one, right? Next slide, please. Shopping, right? Ir de compras. They often ask you, ¿qué prefieres? ¿Vas de compras en almacenes o en tiendas pequeñas? So do you prefer to go shopping in a big department store or in a little boutique, right? And then you have to know why. Why do you prefer to go shopping in that one? ¿Cuál es tu lugar favorito para ir de compras, right? And then centro comercial and so on. What are some of the items you bought at the supermarket, right? So maybe they ask you, where do you go shopping and what do you buy, right? So need to know what you can buy at a market, what you can buy at the supermarket, and how to describe those items. You know, are they caro, expensive, right? Barato, cheap, economico, affordable, and so on, right? Also talking about size. Remember, in Spanish, we have different words for size. So if you're talking about your clothing, talla, good. Tamaño for other objects, número for shoes. And then, okay, we went over that already. Next slide, please. Go back one. Home and family, right? ¿Quién hace las decisiones importantes en casa? Right? Who makes the important decisions at home? Right? Mi madre. Right? So mi madre would be a good answer, But an even better answer would be, mi madre hace las decisiones importantes. But please, I beg, if your tongue got tie up and twist up, and you're going to miss out half of the things, and you're not going to conjugate the verb correctly, mi madre. Right? Because it's a conversation, and really and truly in life, do we always answer each other in complete sentences? No. Once the context has been established, you really don't. But when you do use a complete sentence in the Spanish exam, what it shows is you can manipulate the language. Because I'm asking you, are you, do you, and then you're going to respond with I. So it shows me that, okay, she understood what was asked here, she understood what was asked, and not only do they understand, but they can now put that back in a form that makes sense for the person that is speaking, the I or the we or the they, right? Pedir permiso, to ask permission, right? You always have that, there's always one of those questions in situation responses as well. But maybe we have to ask, who do you ask permission to go out, right? From whom do you ask permission to go? ¿De quién pides permiso para salir con tus amigas? Right? Parientes is the word for relatives. Mantener bien organizado. ¿Quién mantiene bien organizado la casa? Who keeps the home well maintained? Right? You. Yo. Las reuniones familiares. So family reunions. So these are words that I would have seen come out of some of the questions that I know we're probably not thinking about on a regular basis when we think about this particular topic, right? So that's why I pulled out those words. The rest we know, right? Los miembros de la familia. Padre, madre, hermana, and so on. We know those, right? Activities you do with your family. ¿Cuáles actividades hace tu familia? Which activities do your family do, right? Or you can even say hace juntos. Which activities do you do together? We could say hace los fines de semana. Which activities do you do on weekends, right? And again, con qué frecuencia. Next slide, please. So school and career, they always like to ask you about your clubs, right? ¿Cuáles son los clubes en la escuela? Or haces or participas en actividades extracurriculares, right? Extracurricular activities. So some of the words are going to sound like the English form, right? Uniforme. ¿A qué hora es la asamblea a tu escuela, en tu escuela? What time is assembly or mass, right? Horario would be your timetable. Modes of transport, and then you have subjects. Again, we take all kinds of subjects. Sometimes biología is a little harder to pronounce, so say matemáticas, right? ¿Cuántas asignaturas estudias? 4. Menciona matemáticas, inglés, español, ciencia, right? Arte. Say again? Oh, but you know the other ones that are easier to pronounce? Not that we're saying you shouldn't say your química and your biología and your física and so on, but you know, again, geografía is another one that sometimes give people a little trouble to pronounce. And then modes of transport, how you get to school. Professions, si fueras la directora, ¿qué cambiarías? Right? So if you were the director, what would you change? Right? And then you say, I would, and so on, conditional tense. Right? Next slide, please. So let's look at some sample questions and responses. ¿Cuáles son, again, the very question I have there. ¿Cuáles son los diferentes clubes en tu escuela cuando se reúnen? So the things that I have in square brackets mean that if you don't say them, you don't lose marks. Right? So it's not needed to answer the question, but it's a good addition to your answer. Hay muchos clubes en mi escuela. Algunos son el club de español, de música y de ajedrez. Ajedrez is chess. Right? Oh, I was reading too fast? Lo siento. Hay muchos clubes en mi escuela. Algunos son el club de español, de música y de ajedrez. Los clubes se reúnen los miércoles. I don't know what days clubs and activities day, societies day for you guys. But I just picked one day. Again, we're not going to call Marymount and say, Marymount, they said that clubs and activities day is Tuesday. True? No, we just want to know that you could have answered the question to say that that is the day, right? So, cuando se reúnen, when do they meet, right? Or you could say, los clubes de, and name the clubs, se reúnen, and then the day. So again, just as in English, we can say things differently as long as we give the meaning of it, then it's the same thing with Spanish. Language is dynamic, right? Language is dynamic. So as long as we're giving the meaning of something, then that's what is important. Next slide, please. ¿Qué responsabilidades tienes en casa? It's the same as asking qué oficios domésticos, los quehaceres, and so on. So there are different ways to ask it, right? Mis responsabilidades incluyen, so my responsibilities include, or mis responsabilidades son, my responsibilities are, and then we're not conjugating the verb, right? Because the incluyen or the son is already conjugated. Another way you could have answered is just say, lavo los platos, limpio mi dormitorio y hago mi cama. I wash the plates, I clean, I whatever, right? En casa tengo que, at home I have to, right? And we know that tener que is an expression that means the verb that is going to come after it is not conjugated. And that is the same in English. When I say I have to, the next thing I'm going to say is to do, right? I have to leave. I have to. That to in English is the equivalent of AR, ER, and IR in Spanish. So it tells you that the verb is not conjugated, right? ¿Qué haces antes de acostarte? What do you do before going to bed? Antes de acostarme, me cepillo los dientes y me pongo mis pijamas, right? Reflexive. You're doing all of these actions on yourself. So you have to put back the me, right? And again, you could have just said, me cepillo los dientes, because we know what the context is. The context is before you go to bed, right? And you could have put the before you go to bed at the end. Me cepillo los dientes y me pongo mis pijamas antes de acostarme. Next slide, please. Family, simple question, right? ¿Cuántas personas hay en tu familia? ¿Quiénes son? Right? En mi familia hay 3 personas. Mi madre, mi padre y yo. Done. Right? I have no sibling. I want 10. Right? Because next year you're going to ask me to describe them, and I can't figure out how to describe all of them, right? Hay 5 personas en mi familia, mi madre, mis 2 hermanos, mi mascota y yo, right? So we have just the mom, 2 siblings, because hermanos doesn't just mean brothers, right? Hermanos could mean you have a brother and a sister, right? Your pets and you, right? Mi familia tiene or consiste. So I'm showing you different ways that you can use a verb to talk about how many members are in your family. And then I asked you that already. ¿Cómo celebraste tu cumpleaños el año pasado? And I'm taking these straight from CSEC oral papers, right? So these are actual exam questions. El año pasado celebré mi cumpleaños con mi familia, cenar a un restaurante. Right? So last year, I celebrated my birthday with my family. We had dinner at a restaurant. Right? Next slide, please. ¿Cuál es tu talla y tu color preferido? Right? Llevo talla 5. I wear size 5. Right? Y mi color preferido es azul. Right? And notice we don't say azul. Azul. Z has a S sound in Spanish, so azul, right? Mi talla es grande y mi color preferido es negro. Because we're talking about color, it has to still be, the color has to be given back in the masculine form. Am I going too fast? Everybody still here? We're still good? Okay. ¿A dónde te gusta ir de compras especialmente y por qué? Right? Where do you like to go shopping? So now for this question, it's kind of open, right? Doesn't mean you have to give me the name of a store or a type of store. Either one is fine because they never specified. So you can say, I like going shopping at the supermarket because I like food. Right? It answers the question, where do you like to go shopping and why? Right? Here I chose a department store, Maxis, in Kingston, porque es un almacén razonable y tienen muchas cosas que me gustan. Now that's a long, complicated answer, right? But I'm just showing you how complex you can do your answer. So, me gusta, or maybe you say, I like to shop in Halfway Tree because there are many stores in Halfway Tree. Again, we did not say the where is a specific store or anything like that. We're just asking you where. So you can interpret that and answer it accordingly. Make sense? All right, next slide, please. Es fácil viajar entre las islas del Caribe. Explica. Once you see that, we need a paragraph, right? Once you see describe, we need a little paragraph, right? So, sí, es fácil viajar entre las islas del Caribe, right? Or, yes, it's easy to travel. You can even just cut off because we know where we're traveling between, right? The countries in between which we're traveling. Porque no necesitamos visas. We don't need a visa. So, it's not as complicated a process, right? Again, the answer doesn't have to be factual. I'm sure you need visas to go to some countries, but for some, you really only need a passport, right? Las islas están cerca una a la otra, right? They're close by. So that's another reason why you're not sitting on the plane for 22 hours going to China, right? When you reach China, it's a whole different day, right? No es fácil porque ahora hay restricciones a causa de COVID. Don't say COVID-19 in the people exam. COVID-19, right? So that's why I make sure even though I have the number there, I put the words in brackets. Y cuesta mucho viajar a otras islas. It's expensive. Costs a lot, right? Next slide, please. ¿Cuáles son los beneficios de participar en un deporte? Right? Los beneficios incluyen mantenerse en buena salud, divertirse y socializar con otras personas. Once you give me 2 reasons, I'm good. Right? Because I said beneficios. Right? So we understand that you are realizing that it's a plural question, and so you have to give a plural answer. ¿Qué programas no te gusta ver en la televisión? Half of you don't watch TV anyways, in the advent of Netflix. Right? You still watch TV. Right? But if you don't watch TV, you must know the program. You know if nothing else to come on TV, news. Right? So if they ask you what you like to watch, news. If what you don't like to watch, news. Right? News. News is definitely a program that still comes on TV, right? No me gusta ver las noticias, and I put soap operas. Y telenovelas, right? Porque son aburridas. Right? Next slide, please. So reading passage. This is where I need you guys to volunteer. So I have 3 passages, and I need a volunteer from that section, I need a volunteer from this section, and I need a volunteer from that section.
I have a mic.
This is a free opportunity to practice, guys. So can I get the next slide, please? Everybody's like, miss them never tell whereas we wouldn't come. But you have to, okay?
Who is going? Hold on,
we have a volunteer here.
Katie, hold on.
Tenemos. Yes, chair on. Next slide, please. So the trick with the reading passage, remember your punctuations. If you see an accent, stress the letter. And just take time, read, right? Because the passage will always have one of those big long words in there. Take your time, syllable by syllable. The good thing is you normally get the passage beforehand to kind of read through. Go into a quiet, don't read it in your head, because what you're saying in your head sometimes is not what you're going to say when you're actually reading out loud. So do practice by reading out loud, so you can hear if you're struggling with the word. Go ahead. ¿Cuál es tu nombre, por favor?
Mi nombre es Anteja Gittin.
Okay, ¿cuál es el nombre de tu escuela? What's the name of your school?
Kingston Technical High.
Muy bien. Lea, por favor.
Online shopping. Las compras en línea son una de las nuevas oportunidades que el adelanto tecnológico ha creado. Parece ser una actividad de mérito, pero como muchas atracciones hay que considerar las ventajas y las desventajas. Es ciertamente cómodo sentarse en una butaca en casa y hacer compras. Se puede mirar por varios departamentos sin trasladarse físicamente de una localización a otra. No hay colas largas ni nadie para atropellarle o pisotearle cuando hay rebajas o descuentos. Pero son las compras en línea realmente un privilegio. Esta actividad carece de interacción personal y no se puede utilizar el sentido del tacto para verificar la textura y la calidad de su compra. Sobre todo, es absolutamente necesario utilizar en una tarjeta de crédito y quizás sufre el riesgo de hurto de identidad.
All right, muy bien. Muy bien. So just a few errors, right, which is understandable with our vowels. Because in English we have so many different vowel sounds and combinations. But in Spanish it's always a, e, I, o, u. So utilizar, right, identidad, and so on. Muy bien. Very well done. Boy, I should have make sure go last, you know? I should have make sure go last. Can I get the next passage and the next volunteer, please? So we need, is this section going next or that section? This section? Okay, we hear that Marymount is going next. You're not here. No estás aquí. Es un espíritu. Eres un espíritu. So who is going to read? Come on, it's free practice. Cheer her on, cheer her on. And she's reading a love song in the Pacific Ocean. I promise I did not write these passages. I took them from CSEC. It's on.
A love song in the Pacific Ocean. Las ballenas jorobadas viajan desde la región Antártica y la Patagonia chilena durante el invierno hasta las aguas
All right, pause.
cálidas.
Pause. Remember we said, even when you're nervous, remember the punctuations, right? So, las ballenas jorobadas viajan desde la región Antártica y la Patagonia chilena, pause, because there's a comma, right? Durante el invierno, pause, there's a comma. Continue. It's okay. That is it. Si se puede. Yes, you can. Continue. Hasta las aguas. Come on, you can do it. Cheer on again. Just continue from hasta las aguas cálidas.
Hasta las aguas cálidas del Océano Pacífico para buscar parejas. Se enamoran cantando esos cantos pueden oírse a cuentos de kilómetros.
Cientos de kilómetros. But again, you're a little far, so on the exam you wouldn't make that mistake. Continue.
La temporada de avistamiento, que época turística,
Turística. Mhm.
va desde julio a octubre y coincide con su
Periodo de
De-
reproducción.
Las ballenas machos usan sus cantos para cortejar a sus parejas de hembras. Pueden pasar días enteros cortejándolas con saltos y piruetas hasta que se unen y aparean. Prosiguen.
No, but it's good. You know what, me correct you now and then when CSEC you just, right? Prosiguen. You're almost finished, you know? You're almost finished. Come on, prosiguen.
Su periplo, periplo
Yes, periplo.
de regreso al sur del continente para dar a luz a su cría o ballenato 12 meses después.
We would say gue in English, so it's natural for your brain to go there, right? That's okay. Sigue.
Sigue luego el periodo de lactancia que dura un año y al terminar la ballena deja su cría y esta empieza su
Empieza. We put you on the spot, you know, so we understand. Empieza.
su vida adulta.
Muy bien. ¿Cuál es una ballena? ¿Cuál es una ballena? Anybody knows what a ballena is? They were talking about something, and they're in the Antarctic region, right? And it's something about reproduction, and I'm sure you say lactation there, so it must be some animal that live in the ocean. A whale. Yeah. Not a bear, not the polar bear, but a whale. Yes. All right, our last passage is almost as if I knew there would be 3 sections. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Like, this is the first I'm hearing about IOJ. So I am learning too, right? So we have a volunteer from here for our 3rd passage, the Lost Books Club.
Miss Williams, I'm feeling right here.
Okay. I feel it too.
I'm feeling something.
White shirt. Is white shirt your feeling?
We don't know one of them.
One of All right. So which one is it going to be? One of you have to read. You know, she got a little inclination that she should stay right there. So it's free practice, you know, guys. I understand. Yes.
You only want to read one part.
You only want to read one part. Is that not fair? Because we never divide up this part. So you have to read it in its entirety. Cheer him on, cheer them on, cheer them on. All right. Alguien
encuentre un libro olvidado en
cualquier. Oh, you can't see it properly? All right, that's fine. Come a little closer.
You can do it.
Not too close because then there's going to be a feedback. All right.
no es un hecho usual, menos usual es que el libro tenga un mensaje en su primera página,
página,
página, invitadote
invitándote
a tomarlo, leerlo y después dejarlo en otro lugar
público.
público para un alguien más lo encuentre y lo lea. Así funciona
Funciona.
el club de los libros
Club.
club
Club is English, right?
club
Club.
de los libros perdidos, una
Iniciativa, so initiative, right?
iniciativa soñadora que hace algunos años empezó
Empezó. Portrait, right?
a recorrer el mundo, aunque la Red Sea sea
Red Sea would be English, right? Red Sea, yes. Continue.
tan popular
Popular.
hoy en día, tener un libro entre las manos en una experiencia maravillosa. Es una fuente de enseñanza y aprendizaje. En algunos países la gente no lee mucho, quizás porque los libros son caros. Sin embargo, gracias al Club de los Libros Perdidos, es posible que alguien pueda leer un libro más en la vida.
And you did go on like you're shy. So, thank you. Muchas gracias a todos los voluntarios. Right? Thanks to all the volunteers. So, the thing with G, I realized G was a little problem letter. Right? G before A, regular G sound. G, gastar. G before U, regular G sound. Gustar. G before I, H, gimnasio. Right? G before E, H again, general. Right? Am I missing a vowel? And O, regular G sound, gozar. Right? Next slide, please. So, oh, this is a little small. That's all right. Like I said, you're getting the PowerPoint. But what this is just the oral situation response topics covers everything, right? Everything. So we have interviews. There's always somebody going on some kind of a job interview or something. Descriptions, how to make compromises, give opinions or make commentary, asking permission. You have to provide a reason or an explanation, make an apology, give a suggestion. So if you're giving a suggestion, what tense are we going to use? Actually, what mood, but what tense? Subjunctive, muy bien. Because giving a suggestion is not something that is factual, right? We're suggesting it, we don't know if you're going to accept our suggestion. So suggestions and recommendations and wishes and so on are all subjunctive. Because I can wish that you all buy me a Range Rover, right? Sports, red, leather interior, right? But I can wish it, doesn't mean you guys are going to buy it, right? So subjunctive, good? Plans connote which tense? If I'm asking you about your plans for tomorrow, which tense? Future plans, all right? Sorry, future tense for your future plans, right? Asking for and giving directions, that's a command, right? Once you know subjunctive, you know command. They're conjugated the same way. Making requests, and then giving congratulations. I like those questions because the answer is enhorabuena, felicitaciones, felicidades. That's it. What else are you going to say? I congratulate you? No, we don't really say that in Spanish, right? Organizing or participating in celebratory activities or meetings. So they might say to you, you are the club president and you need to organize the meeting, but your secretary just messaged you about the venue. What does your secretary say, and how do you respond, right? So we can say now that el lugar no está disponible. The venue is not available. Okay, and what is your response? Está bien, cambiará la fecha. Change the date or something like that, right? Excuses, providing consolation, giving condolences, right? Expressing surprise, right? Your sister just won first place. How do you express your surprise? What do you say to congratulate her, right? Those are the kinds of questions you might get. Expressing disappointment. Your mother told you to not sneak out of the house. I mean, that's not really a question, but your mother told you to wash the dishes before she comes back home, but you didn't do that. How does she express her disappointment, and what do you say, right? That could potentially be a question. Shopping or returning items, asking for, providing the names of items, going out and so on, accepting or declining invitations. So your aunt is inviting you to a Patti LaBelle concert, not your genre, not your era. You don't even know who is Patti LaBelle. How do you politely decline the invitation? Some of you do? All right, lovely. How do you politely decline the invitation, and what is your reason for declining the invitation, right? Something like that. Talking about your feelings. You didn't pass your Spanish test. How do you express, how do you feel about it, right? And what do you say to your parent? What do you promise your teacher that you're going to do the next time, right? I feel badly, and I am going to study more, right? Lovely. Next slide, please. So we're pretty much at the end now, right? Before we get into the study tips, anything anybody had a question about right off the bat? Don't be shy. I don't bite, right? And no question is a stupid question. Any questions? No? We're good? All right. Let's look at some of the study tips that I have here. So for oral conversation, like I said, words like describe and words like explica require a longer answer, right? Describe un lugar interesante en tu país, right? Describe one of those interesting places in your country. State the place. Tell me why it is interesting. Un lugar interesante en mi país es Dunn's River. Es una playa es una playa barata. It's a cheap beach. Es una playa bonita. It's a pretty beach, right? And all of those things. So make sure you're able to describe it. If you know a long response, you can use parts of that for a shorter question. So if you know an entire daily routine for yourself, if I should ask you at what time you wake up, you can use that part of the daily routine. Make sense? So we can sometimes ask you the question as a long question, or they can ask you parts of what would be the long question. The answers remain the same. Pay attention to words that, to word endings. So mente would be like li. Dad and dades would be iti and itis. So actividad, activity. Why I say that? It kind of hints you to the English word. Responsabilidad, responsibility. Actividad, activity. Generalmente, generally. Usualmente, usually. Frecuentemente, frequently. So if you know these little things, then at the beginning, we cannot tell you what the word is, right? For the oral reading passage, like I said before, pay attention to the accents. They indicate that you need to stress that syllable. So accents in Spanish really tells you that this is not really where you're supposed to stress the word based on the number of syllables, but this is where we want the stress, right? And that's why sometimes when you pluralize a word, you would have to add an accent to maintain the sound of the word, or you might have to take away accent to maintain the sound of the word. Right? So stresses are normally unaccentuated. Naturally where they fall, if you have a 2-syllable word, the first syllable is stressed. If you have a 3-syllable word, you're emphasizing your second syllable. A 4-syllable word, you emphasize the third syllable. So normally for unaccentuated stresses, you're stressing the penultimate syllable, right? Outside of that, we put an accent. Pay attention to your punctuation. The topic kind of gives you an understanding of what you're going to be reading about, right? So with the Lost Books Club, you know that you'll be having to talk about books. and so on. So that kind of helps you to understand what you're reading. Because sometimes the problem with the passage is, I have no clue what the passage is saying, is what you're saying. And if you go into the exam with that, you're going to read it like you don't understand. But the topic that is on the passage normally helps you to understand what it is that you're reading about so that you can read with some type of understanding. Practice reading in front of a mirror. Right? So go in your mirror and read. So that you're accustomed to reading to somebody else. Practice reading to your family members, even when they don't understand nothing. Right? I used to do that for presentations as well. If I have a presentation to give, even if they don't understand the topic, come family meeting time, you have to listen to me present. Right? Because then they can tell me about my posture, my body language. Did I present the thing in a way that they could understand? And so on. So beg mommy and daddy or big sister, even little sister, even if you have to give them the tablet. Or, sometimes with siblings we have to bribe them, give them a chocolate, a candy, something. Bribe them and have them sit down. And you just practice, because the more you practice it, on the exam day you'll be less nervous. Because you've mastered the whole, I'm practicing my sounds, right? You've mastered the part where you're reading to somebody else, right? And so, yes, you're still going to be nervous, but it wouldn't be as bad, right? As badly on the day. Long words, just slow down. Syllable by syllable. Desafortunadamente. Before you can say desafortunadamente, right? So you have to just, and again, the more you practice it, the easier it will become for you on the day of the exam. So don't just read through the passage and say, let's skip that word there. On the exam, you can't skip it. So you might as well practice it, right? Oral situation responses, answer exactly what is asked. So if they say to you, you were late for school this morning, give your apologies and state why you were late. Lo siento, right? Llego tarde a causa del tráfico. Traffic. Don't bother say, there was traffic and I woke up late and all of it. Yes, it would be nice if you can explain all of that, but if you cannot do it with precision and grammatically correct, stick to a simple answer, right? Because right now with the exam, we're not focusing so much on, yeah man, I want to live in Spain eventually and so on, and I need to be fluent. Yes, that's great, and I love that. But for the exam, we're trying to get a good grade, right? So just focus on the answer that is exactly what they're looking for. And I said that. So what are some of the things you do that I didn't mention? Anybody? Any tips for you? Go ahead. Mm-hmm. All right. So what he was saying is translate the passage into English, and then so you understand what it's saying, and so you can better read it. But on exam day, you're not going to have that much time. But the practice of doing that also means what? He's increasing his vocabulary, and so he's more likely to understand what he gets on CXC because his vocabulary base is broader. Vocabulary is the key, guys. If you don't have vocabulary, that's the problem, because you will either understand what they're asking and cannot answer, or don't understand what they're asking, let alone to try and answer, right? Next slide, please. I think that was my last slide, but yeah. Tienen preguntas. Anybody has any preguntas? Sorry, sometimes the brain doesn't quite make the move to English as fast. Anybody has any questions? Did you find this useful, guys? So we can let IOJ know if we should do this? Okay, so they should do it again next year? For those, none of you will be here next year, because all of them passing no Spanish, right? So it's for so you can go back and tell them, say, we did go IOJ and it did help, right? Anything else we could have done differently for today? No? All right. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. Oh, we have giveaways. How many giveaways do we have? Oh, my own. Yes, I know. And how much? All right, so apparently we have some giveaways, right? But also, when I got here this morning, there was a student who was already here. So, yes, could you? No, it's not you.
One second, guys. So everyone, just a quick break in the program. I want to introduce you to Latea Morgan, one of our partners and educators, and she just wanted to say a few words. We try here at the Institute of Jamaica to always big up people and allow people who have helped us. Especially we have some refreshments and sponsorship and stuff for you outside. So just welcome Miss Morgan to say a quick few words.
Hello. Hi, how is everybody doing today? Good. Well, how old is this group? 17. Okay, so it's a range. All right, so one of the things I do, I do a lot of functions at high schools and I do speak to students. And typically when I ask them how they're doing, everybody says they're tired and bad. So you're the exception here. Everybody's good. I maybe shouldn't have brought that up then, should I? All right, well, you're alive. You have the opportunity to get things done, and that is a blessing. So my purpose here today is to give away some copies of my book. All right, so this is a book that I wrote and published myself, and I did it because when I graduated high school, I was completely lost as to what to do, and I made a lot of bad decisions, and throughout the years, I've always been passionate about writing. So I documented the lessons I learned, and then it just hit me one day, I could make this into a book. So this book speaks about quite a few things. The first thing that I talk about in the book is self-discovery and personal branding. How many of you believe you know who you are and what you want to do in life? Very few? What would you want to do in life? Oh, that's another thing. I normally call on people to participate. So if you're going to raise your hands at my answers, be prepared to speak, okay? All right. So come on, share. Don't be shy. Sorry, what was that? Live life. All right. And, I don't have a time allotted for this, so I won't spend a lot of time. So in that very first chapter, what it does, it asks you questions, or rather, it gives you questions to ask yourself to figure out things you should know about yourself. Because I find as humans, what we do, we get to know the people around us, but we don't get to know ourselves. There are questions you'd ask everybody, but would you ever ask yourself? No. Right? So this book, and I'll just quickly run through what the book covers. As I said, I won't spend much time here today. So for the persons who will get, I'm giving away 5 copies. I want you to actually read it. I didn't write this book so it could be put down on shelves everywhere and persons look at it as a pretty book, right? So I've gone through a lot of work. The National Library have purchased copies to put in schools. Sagicor Foundation has come on board to purchase to donate to schools. I've been doing a lot of groundwork to get this book out there, and I'm willing to give away books to you youngsters today, so please make good use of it, okay? All right, so some of the things that you'll find in this book, and I'll just read it from the table of contents. So I spoke about self-discovery and personal branding, equipping yourself with the right tools, health and wellness. This is one I think is not really covered much. And when I talk about health and wellness, I talk about mental health, physical health, medical checkups, health insurance. All of those things are covered in that chapter. And then we talk about deciding on your journey. And when I tell people to decide on their journey, I don't only speak about education. How will your life work? How will your career path work with your family life, with your friendships, with your recreational activities? So I give a structure basically because I think a lot of persons, they get so focused on their career that they forget that there's much more to life, right? We talk about goal setting and executing, and I think a lot of emphasis is placed on how to set your goals. How many people know how to set your goals? You know how to effectively set them. The SMART acronym, how many persons? No? Well, this book will give you a guide to that. And I don't only tell you how to set your goals, I tell you how to execute them. You know, it's easy for persons to say, oh, this is how you set goals, but how will you actually get to the end game? Right? So there is actually, you know, good information on that. It talks about tertiary level institutions in Jamaica, including ones that are accredited, and how you can access resources to find out more about these schools. We talk about finding job opportunities in Jamaica. We speak about how to manage having a job while attending university, because that's something that I did, and it was very difficult. But when I graduated university, I had several years of experience under my belt. So I'm going to be 30 this year, and I've been working. I know, people are typically startled at that. Yes, so, and I've been working for 12 years. I've served, I've done a lot of charity. I have a degree in accounting, by the way. So no, I don't have any formal education in writing, right? So throughout that, and it was tough, but throughout that, that is how I learned that going to school while working really benefits you, because you're going to have years of experience under your belt. You're going to learn lots of time management during this process. And this, I wrote this during the pandemic, so I had a section on handling online classes, because it was, and in some cases, still quite applicable. We talk about money management, and that is a huge one, a huge, huge one. I've been in debt. I had a credit card that went into bad debt, and guess what? I didn't really need it, but I had nobody to tell me how debt really works. You know, everybody wants a car. Nobody understands how interest rates work. You just take a quick payday loan. You don't understand delayed gratification, so you can save towards the things that you want. So I speak quite a bit about those things. I also talk about how to fund your education, right? Student Loan Bureau is great in terms of allowing accessibility to education. How many of you have thought about looking into scholarships? Right, so this book gives resources. It tells you the foundations you can check with and places you can check to find scholarships. And then I give some things like bonus advice, you know, little information that might have been missed. I also spoke about what COVID-19 taught me. I also have some exercises in the book. So the goal setting exercise in money management activity, I actually have a chapter that sets out these activities for you to complete on your own. So, you know, the book itself gives you the information on how to do it, and then the activities will take you through it. And the final thing that I have, I interviewed several persons from several walks of life, asking them various questions about their experiences. You know, persons who own businesses, right down to my dad, who is a farmer. You know, people who worked while going to school, people who went to school full-time. So I gathered a group of individuals, got their experiences, and I put it in this book because I wanted persons to get the information. I didn't want it to be biased. I didn't want it to be a case where it was just my opinion. All right, so that is basically what this book is about, and 5 persons will get a copy each today. All right, so before I go, does anybody have any questions before I exit the stage? No, not a talkative group. So for individuals interested in copies, you can reach out to me directly. I sell them directly. I haven't put them in the bookstore, and it's a strategic thing in that I'm trying to get foundations on board and to bulk sell and then donate them. But if you want to purchase a copy, you can reach out to me. My numbers, if you want to take it down, 390. Let me know when you're ready. 390-3977 and 423-1095. And you can search my name on Instagram, and you'll find the page for the book and also my personal page. And the spelling of my name is Lotaya. My last name is Morgan. Did everybody get that? Lotaya, Lotaya Morgan. All right, so I will leave the other individuals to do their question and answer so some persons can benefit.
Thank you, Miss Morgan.
All right, so Mr. Jordan Reed, Still here? Yes, you were the first person here this morning. So what I have for you is also a book. We had the same idea. So I'm giving away one of my books, which is just a short collection of motivational quotes, right? So that is for you. To our 3 volunteers who read, naturally, you will get 1 copy of her book each. So come up for your books. See why you must volunteer to do things sometimes? And listen, the information that is in that book, I wish I knew at your age. Right? Sometimes I wish I knew that at your age, because the older, it's never too late to start over, you know. But to how things are, it's better you start earlier than later. Make sense? Because the truth is, not everybody comes from a family that you'll be able to just go to college and don't think about these things, right? So the information is going to be very, very useful. All right, and for the last 2 copies of the book, we're going to ask an oral exam question. So,
Miss Williams, is there an equivalent to Spanish with yes, no, Spanish tone? Like, you know, because them look nervous now, you know.
ay caramba.
Oh, ay caramba.
It doesn't have a literal translation. That's as close to yes, no, Spanish tone, I would say. All right, the question is, while you are in Spain as an exchange student, you meet someone at a party. Right? How do you express your first impression of Spain, and what does he or she say? Who wants to answer? You met somebody at a party in Spain, and you're going to give your first impressions of Spain, and what does the person say in response to your first impression? Come on, don't be shy, guys. You actually have to come up here and answer the question, you know, so you can collect your book.
All right, guys, huddle. You want to try? Okay.
Yes, okay. All right, go ahead.
So I would say, ay Dios mío, me gusta tu país. I'd say, hay muchas culturas. I say.
And then what does he respond, or he or she?
Me entiendo.
Okay. All right, we work with that. All right. We work with that. So another thing he could have said was estoy de acuerdo. I am in agreement with your impression of Spain. So she's saying she likes the country, there's a lot of culture there, and so on. Lovely. All right, I should probably do one of the Spanish conversation questions. So all who never answered the English one, you have a Spanish one to try now.
Thank you.
All right. ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Preparar la comida o lavar los platos? ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Y por qué? ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Preparar la comida o lavar los platos y por qué?
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Feels very school challenge-ish.
You prefer Alabamos los platos porque, porque es fácil.
Okay. Yeah. Prefiero lavar los platos porque es más fácil. Ven aquí. Come for your book. So those are our 5 prizes. All right. Thank you so much again, guys. Gracias por su atención. Thank you for your attention today. Y buena suerte con todos los exámenes. All right? Good luck with all the exams. I also want to thank the IOJ for this opportunity. Mrs. McDavid, thank you so much for the ability to share with our students. All right? The presentation will be emailed to you if you so desire. The email that you used when you registered, it will be sent to you. And she can share my contact information, the cerebral one. And if you need to reach out, that is fine. All right? Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, give Miss Williams a round of applause, please. I mean, even though we started behind, we're still finishing relatively on time. As always, first, want to thank and big up Miss Williams for giving us her time to come to us today, right, guys? Miss Morgan, thank you so much for bringing those books. And guys, make sure you read them, you know, because some good up thing in there, you know. Because every time Miss Morgan asks a question, me couldn't even put up my hand. So me not ready clearly. So me I go read the book too, okay? And we want to thank all the teachers, the parents. Big up, Daddy. Thank you for staying and bringing the putus with you. There are some other parents that came and had to like step in and out. The teachers, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Gutierrez, and from Dintil, thank you so much. So as Miss Williams said, we have if you want the PowerPoint, please just make sure you give me over your email so I make sure I have it correct. This is also on YouTube right now. We're live streaming. So big up Enid Bennett High and Hampton and Jason and Butterfly 555. Which I think is Enid Bennett High. Thanks everyone for joining us. And the YouTube will be up. So you guys can look at it if you need a refresher as well. We also want to thank our sponsors for some of the refreshments. Seprod Foundation, Seprod, Grace Kennedy, and Just Foods. So if you guys don't have any questions, you can, of course, come to Miss Williams afterwards on one-on-one. I will say anything you guys need from us, from all her contact details, Miss Morgan's contact details, we have it all. Even I know some teachers may want some of the photos. If you need that, link we. Okay? We're here for you guys. So God bless and what's the goodbye? Adios. Adios, mi caramba. Auntie Alexis knows no Spanish, guys. So adios. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again.
This one I do with the jabata. Me, I no get time, I did da. Dada cover my face, calling me la ba da. Biggie man, we know they wear a ba da. Tell me, my nigga, what's it gon' G-Wagon, all depend. Take your time, ride the whip. I no feet, die for nothing. My nigga, what's it gon' be? G-Wagon, all depend. girl, ride the wave. I know fi die for nothing. Make you no say anything when you do, them must commend it. I can't come and keep myself. So anything when I do, I try to do on my way.